Week 8 is here, and Tanner's breaking down everything you need to know. We've got the free bet of the week, injury watch, stock up, stock down, DraftKings Player of the Slate, and our Primetime Preview with a prop that you do not want to miss. Let's jump in.
The time is now for the Talk About Sports podcast. I am Tanner. I am our head of analytics, and I am in my 9th year working alongside Bob, originating our NFL and college basketball bets. And today, as always, I'm joined by our digital media specialist, Grant. What is going on in Miami and New York?
Oh, just disasters all over the place. I mean, you got the Jets owner, Woody Johnson, publicly stating, and I quote, "I just think the defense and special teams were doing better. Defense is pretty good. If we could just complete a pass, it would look good."
I mean, he's just publicly calling out Justin Fields there. You'd think, okay, they're going to bench Fields and go with Tyrod. But then it came out that Tyrod's a little banged up, and Fields might actually start this game after the Jets owner said that.
Yeah, and then you got Mike McDaniels announced that Tua will be starting after benching him in the Cleveland game, and he added, quote, "My expectation is that we don't throw 10 picks." And then you have Tua saying, some of it has to do with being able to see guys. "I'm not the tallest guy. You don't want to just throw it blindly."
I mean, the quotes are crazy. The thing is, though, I sneaky kind of like the matchups for the Jets and Dolphins offense here. So if you can block out the noise and the crazy quotes on the field, I don't know. We'll get to it later in the podcast.
All right. Well, before we get to that, let's head into our free bet of the week. And you are 25-17-1 on podcast sides and totals dating back to 2023. And we've got the Eagles as -7.5 favorites over the Giants.
Yeah, and so I just want to talk about the money line in this game for now, because it's the exact same as it was 2 weeks ago when the Eagles closed -415 at Circa. In that game, and in that game, Philly was without starting left guard Landon Dickerson and all-pro defensive tackle Jalen Walker. And the Eagles lost Quinyon Mitchell in that game after 13 snaps and still outgained the Giants by 0.6 yards per play. They lost because of turnovers, and they went 3 for 11 on late downs, while New York went 11 for 16. Now, since then, the Eagles did lose center Cam Jurgens, and the Giants will be getting Darius Slayton back. But New York is still without Malik Neighbors, and they might be without 3 starters on defense this week: Paulson Adebo, Javon Holland, and Brian Burns. In the fourth quarter last week, after all 3 of those guys went out, the Broncos averaged 0.56 EPA per play. So, you look at, okay, Jurgens is out, but Carter, Dickerson are back. Mitchell's going to play. The Eagles are fielding a team 1 point better than they were 2 weeks ago. And then with those 3 guys out for the Giants, but Slayton back, the Giants are fielding a team 1 point worse than they were 2 weeks ago. The flip in home field in division is lower than normal, but it's still worth 2 points. So, okay, now we've got 4 points to account for. You have to think Jackson Dart is 4 points better than you did 2 weeks ago to justify this being the exact same price in the game. And, I mean, I just can't get there.
No, I mean, Dart has been good, but it's not like he's been taking the league over by storm. I mean, he's averaging 5.8 yards per pass play with a 3.8 turnover-worthy play rate, which is 30th. And then Philadelphia's offense found something with Jalen Hurts under center for a career-high 41% of his snaps last week, and the Eagles averaged 7.4 yards per play in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of like the matchup for the Eagles defense, particularly if Adebo's not being able to go, because that means it's going to be backup Deontay Banks out there across from Devontae Smith, who's second in EPA per target. He'll be on an island. New York's defense leads the NFL with a 42% man coverage rate. Can you imagine Banks versus Devontae Smith in man coverage? Not going to go well. So I think this should be priced more like Eagles by 9.5. And we're going to take Eagles -7.5 as our free bet of the week.
I love it. Well, let's shift over to our next segment here. And we've got the injury watch. And what do you think about the quarterback change at Carolina? I mean, it looks like Bryce Young is going to miss this week.
Well, you look at it. I mean, Bryce Young is averaging -0.02 EPA per play this season. And Andy Dalton has been better than that since arriving in Carolina. Slightly, but he has been better. Now, similar to the Jets situation between Tyrod and Justin Fields, I'm not going to say the offense is better with the backup, but I'm not going to make a downgrade either.
Well, Dalton or Young will catch a small break, as the Bills will be without interior defender Daquan Jones, who has a 9.7% pressure rate, and backup Deion Walker has a 6.0% pressure rate.
Yeah, and either guy is not going to be relied on too much. The Panthers have a league-high 48% rush success rate, and I think they're just going to pound the rock as long as they can stay in this game, because the Bills are 29th in EPA per rush allowed.
Well, looking at the 49ers, they held the Falcons to 10 points in their first game without Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. But do you think this is going to be sustainable?
Well, let's look at the bigger picture here. So San Francisco's defense is 0.08 EPA per play worse with Fred Warner and Nick Bosa off the field since 2019. We expect about 65 plays for the Texans on Sunday, which means those two are worth 5 points. And in addition to the losses of Warner and Bosa, the 49ers also lost edge defender Bryce Huff last week. Huff had a 15.4% pressure rate this year. He's been good with Robert Saleh in his career. Remember, he was good back with the Jets, too. Bosa had a 15.6% pressure rate. Now you look at San Francisco's remaining started defensive line, Mykel Williams, more of a run defender, Alfred Collins, Jordan Elliott, the backup edge defender there. I mean, those guys are averaging just a 7.6% pressure rate, way below Huff and Bosa.
Yeah, and we know Robert Saleh is not going to send more pass rushers to increase the pressure despite the lack of talent remaining on the defensive line. I mean, San Francisco's defense had a league-low 22% blitz rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, they're just not going to be able to get to C.J. Stroud this week. Now, Stroud is going to be missing Nico Collins, but the gap between Collins and the other Texans wide receivers hasn't been as big in years past. Collins, actually, he's averaging just 0.05 EPA per target, and Xavier Hutchinson, Jalen Noel, and Jaden Higgins are combining to average 0.24 EPA per target. So higher than Collins this year. Now, I still think Collins is worth quite a bit to this Texans offense, but not as much as he has been previously. I mean, C.J. Stroud went into Baltimore and averaged 7.8 yards per pass play against a decimated defense in Week 5. I'm kind of expecting something similar here against a decimated defense in Week 8.
All right, well, looking at the Colts, they're averaging 0.22 EPA per play, which ranks 14th through the first 7 weeks of every offense this century. And now they get Tennessee's defense without interior defender Jeffrey Simmons, who leads the NFL in pass rushing efficiency.
Titans are allowing a half yard per play more with Simmons off the field this year. He's worth 2 points according to our metrics, and they're also likely going to be without Arden Key and starting cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. They already traded starting cornerback Jarvis Brownlee, so that means it's going to be two backups on the outside trying to hold up in coverage while they can't get a pass rush because Simmons is off the field.
Well, looking at the Colts defense, they're also struggling to keep players on the field. I mean, cornerback Travarius Ward will be out again, and they are down to 6th-string quarterback Jonathan Edwards, who is surrendering 11 yards per target. And then edge defender Samson Ebukam ranked 16th in pass rushing efficiency before an MCL injury to his knee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, I think, with Ebukam out and DeForest Buckner kind of bottled up by those Tennessee guards, I mean, Simmons and the guards have really been the only good players on the Titans all season. Skoronski ranks 13th in pass blocking efficiency, and Zeitler is 14th in pass blocking efficiency. I think they can bottle up Buckner, give Cam Ward a chance here. I mean, our model makes Indianapolis a 15-point favorite with a predicted total of 49.5. I'd have interest in the over here, just given the injuries on both sides of the ball, on both of those defenses. But, you can't guarantee that the Colts just aren't going to be running out the clock in the fourth quarter as such a huge favorite here. So we ultimately didn't bet it, but I think from a numbers standpoint, it's still a touch low.
All right, well, looking at the Jets, wide receiver Garrett Wilson looks like he's going to be out again, and Wilson's averaging 1.85 yards per route run, while New York's other wide receivers are combining to gain 0.56 yards per route run. But you mentioned earlier that you might like this Jets offense on Sunday.
I mean, even without Wilson, if you were going to play one team, it would be the Bengals, because you can attack the Bengals with the tight end. Mason Taylor is up to 7th in success rate among tight ends, and the Bengals are 29th in EPA per target allowed to tight ends. The Jets also can, hit the screen game without Garrett Wilson. Their running backs have the 4th highest target share in the NFL, and the Bengals have rookie linebackers that you can exploit. The Bengals are 30th in EPA per target allowed to opposing running backs. So if you were going against a defense that you could only throw to running backs and tight ends, you'd want to go against this Bengals defense with rookie linebackers out there that can also be exploited in the ground game. So it might not look as bad for Justin Fields as everybody thinks on Sunday.
All right, well, looking at the Falcons, linebacker Divine Diablo left last game in the first quarter due to a forearm injury, and he will be sidelined this week. And I think this is a sneaky bad loss for Atlanta's defense.
Diablo is 4th in run stop rate among all linebackers in the NFL. And the coverage is going to take a hit with him off the field because backup JT Bertrand surrendered 8 yards per target last season. Now, Mike McDaniel's system prioritizes, those screens, bubbles, choice routes to get the ball in playmakers' hands over the middle against linebackers. I expect him to pick on Bertrand all week. The Dolphins running backs have the 3rd highest target share in the NFL, and the Falcons were already 27th in EPA per target allowed to running backs. That's going to get worse with Bertrand on the field. So I like the matchup for Miami's offense on Sunday.
Yeah, and Atlanta's defense is surrendering a 47% rush success rate, which is 31st in the NFL, and it's likely the run-stop defense gets even worse without Diablo, so I think we could see a huge game from A-Chain here, but let's move over to the Bucs, and they lost wide receiver Mike Evans and edge rusher Hassan Reddick, who is 12th in pressures, and Tampa Bay was already without wide receiver Chris Godwin, running back Bucky Irving, and the starting right side of the offensive line, but how are you handicapping this team with so many injuries?
It has been wild. I mean, Baker had a bad game last Monday night, but you could make a case he still should be in the argument for MVP. He's just carrying this team with just more offensive injuries than I've seen in quite some time. They're 15th in yards per play, and they're 22nd in success rate. So worse than they have been, scoring thus far. And I think the offense is probably between 15th and 22nd. That's where you got to have them power rated here. Meanwhile, the defense is 17th in success rate allowed, and now they're without their top pass rusher in Reddick. Just given all of this, I don't think you can have Tampa Bay rated as an above-average team in the current state.
No, I don't think you can either. But let's shift over to our next segment here. We've got stock up, stock down, and whose stock are you buying right now?
I'm going to buy Dak Prescott. So you look at it, you usually wouldn't be buying someone when they go against Denver's defense that has the 4th highest blitz rate and a league high 45% pressure rate, and that's because they play a ton of cover one behind those blitzes. Usually cover one is vulnerable to scrambles, but the Broncos have done a really good job of keeping quarterbacks in the pocket, and they have conceded the lowest scramble rate in the NFL. So what's the type of quarterback that can succeed against Denver's defense? They would need to be comfortable against that pass rush and not rely on scrambles. Enter Dak Prescott, who has just a 3% sack rate this season, 2nd in the NFL, and he's averaging 30% more yards per pass play versus cover one than other coverages. We know CeeDee Lamb crushes man coverage, and George Pickett on the outside one-on-one, as long as it's not Surtain, is going to be really dangerous as well.
A little Javonte revenge game as well, but
there you go.
Whose stock are you going to be selling this week?
Green Bay's defense, after they had a 57% pressure rate in Arizona last week, that was the 6th highest pressure rate by a defense this season. Micah Parsons had a career best 44% pass rush win rate versus the Cardinals. Parsons is up to 37 pressures through 7 weeks, including a bye. He's already surpassed all but one of the Green Bay defenders from last year. So I'm selling them because they're about as high as they could get as a pass rush unit. And Rodgers, not the quarterback you want to count on your pass rush with because he gets the ball out the 2nd fastest in the NFL. He's been relatively better against a standard pass rush than the blitz. When you just send 4 guys at Rodgers, he knows where to pick apart the defense, and the Packers have the 3rd highest standard pass rush rate in the league. The Steelers also use heavy formations at the 2nd highest rate in the NFL, and the Packers are surrendering 42% more yards per pass play versus heavy formations compared to 3+ wide receiver sets. That's 31st relatively in the league.
Yeah, you forgot to mention this is an absolute smash revenge spot for Aaron Rodgers playing the Packers again, but let's shift over to our next segment here. We've got the DraftKings Player of the Slate, and who are you putting in your lineups on Sunday?
I'm going to go all the way down the list to Spencer Rattler at 4,700. So he's actually QB 17 this season. I think that's higher than most people would think. It's certainly higher than DraftKings is expecting because he's priced as one of the lowest quarterbacks this week, which really doesn't track to me because the Saints team total is only slightly below average on Sunday at 21.5. Now, Tampa Bay's defense is 4th in EPA per rush allowed, and Spencer Rattler is going to need to win this game with his arm. The Bucs, 5th highest blitz rate, 2nd highest 2-high coverage rate. That's exactly where Rattler's been good. He's been second relatively against the blitz and seventh relatively against two high coverages compared to single high coverages. The Buccaneers have also allowed the seventh most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks this season. So I think Rattler can add a floor here with his legs. And I just don't think he should be priced as one of the cheapest quarterbacks this Sunday.
I love it. A little Rattler bounce back game after a horrible last week. But let's shift over to our next segment here. We've got the weather of the week. And what are you seeing out there?
Well, the first thing I wanted to talk about in this segment is just how much different this Sunday is going to be than what Dylan Gabriel has gone against in his first three starts. So you remember his first start was against Brian Flores with 20-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts. Then both teams described the grass as embarrassing and borderline unplayable in Pittsburgh. And then Gabriel had to contend with a heavy rainstorm last Sunday. So this week, he'll be in Foxborough in ideal weather conditions, and he should look better than he has thus far.
Yeah, another positive for Gabriel is the Browns will be getting back starting right tackle Jack Conklin, and then starting left tackle Cam Robinson and Conklin are allowing a 7.2% pressure rate, while backups Cornelius Lucas and KT Leviston is surrendering a 13.9% pressure rate. So the starters only have combined for 332 snaps compared to the backups with 569 snaps. So Cleveland's offense should be better with Robinson and Conklin back on the field.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how much Cleveland's offense has been playing with two backups at tackle all season. So with those two guys, I mean, if Conklin could stay in the game, I feel like he's been in and out of the lineup for a year and a half now. But with those two guys on the field, Cleveland's offense should be better. Now, let's shift it over to this week as far as bad weather goes, and really not much. I mean, especially compared to last Sunday. Only game shaping up here could be Monday night, looking like some showers possible there, but it's far from certain, so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
All right, well, let's get to that game with our primetime preview. And we got the Kansas City Chiefs as minus 12.5 point favorites versus Washington. And the reason this line is that high is because Washington will be without starting quarterback Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in the past, but Jaden Daniels, obviously he's had a great start to his career. He's 10th in EPA per play since the start of last season. Crazy thing is, though, Marcus Mariota is 5th in EPA per play during the same time span. So Mariota has been better in the Cliff Kingsbury offense than Daniels has, obviously, in a small sample. We're still making an adjustment down for the Commanders' offense, but I think it's always worth noting that Mariota has been pretty good with Kingsbury. And the positive news for the Commanders' offense is they'll likely be getting back both starting wide receivers. Terry McLaurin has a 59% success rate this season. Deebo Samuel has a 58% success rate, and he has enough targets to qualify for 18th in success rate this year. Meanwhile, the backups, Jalen Lane and Chris Moore, with 38% and 47% success rate, respectively. So it's a massive upgrade for the Commanders to get those receivers back, even though Daniels will be out of the game.
Well, looking at the other side of the ball, Patrick Mahomes averaged 0.55 EPA per play last week in his first full week with a full complement of weapons.
Yeah, and Kelsey only got 3 targets. They were definitely force-feeding the ball to Rashee Rice in that game, but I think he's going to be a little bit more involved on Monday night. Kelsey has a league-high 73% success rate, and Washington's defense is 30th in EPA per target allowed to tight ends.
Looking at the Chiefs line, right guard Trey Smith and right tackle Juwan Taylor left the game against the Raiders, so their status of the right side of the offensive line will be important to keep tabs on heading into this game.
Yeah, I mean, Smith and Taylor have both been key for Kansas City this season. Smith, 7th in pass blocking efficiency, Taylor, 5th in pass blocking efficiency. That cluster loss would be worth 1.5 points by our metrics if both are sidelined. So you're definitely right. We need to keep tabs on that. Now, the break the Chiefs offensive line gets is the Commanders will be without Dorrance Armstrong, who's 6th in sacks this year. He's been their best player on defense. He's out for the year now. Major loss for the Commanders. So put it all in there. We make the Chiefs 10.7 point favorites with a predicted total of 47.1.
All right, well, before we go, we have to do our primetime prop, and you are 28 and 22 on podcast props dating back to 2023, but where do you want to go in this game?
I'm going to take Marcus Mariota over 27.5 rushing yards. So Mariota has gone over this prop in 4 of his 5 games with Cliff Kingsbury, including 2 of them where he was on the field for less than 35 snaps, like last week. Now, this will be a full start, and they're likely going to be trailing Chiefs play a ton of too high defenses. They'll play a ton more with a lead, leaving room underneath for Mariota to run. Kansas City's defense has allowed the third most rushing attempts by opposing quarterbacks this season. Jaden Daniels' rushing props is usually listed in the 40s, and I think Mariota's prop should be listed in the 40s as well.
I completely agree on that one, Tan, but that will do it for our Week 8 preview. If you're looking for more content, make sure to head over to drbobsports.com, where you'll find Tanner's NFL analysis as well as Bob's college football write-ups, and we will see you guys next Friday, preview Week 9.